And Steph has been phenomenal. I love basketball. I love entrepreneurship. It's obviously fun and cool and nice to just have a celebrity invest, but more importantly, are they going to help you?
Welcome back to the second episode of The Path, a videocast and podcast series where we invite the founders of successful businesses to share their experiences and insights to inspire future entrepreneurs. In part 2 of the conversation between Snapcommerce's co-founder, CEO, Hussein Fazal, and Telstra Ventures general partner Yash Patel, they discuss operating from Toronto, their partnership with Steph Curry, and the role of celebrity investors in this world of innovation, the importance of investor trust and building a positive company culture. Have a listen, have a watch, and enjoy. Cheers.
What made you think about sort of setting up roots in Toronto versus San Francisco, and how do you think about that longer term?
I think what's really interesting and exciting is that Toronto has become like a world-class city for engineering talent. You get fantastic engineers at much better prices obviously than in the Valley. Plus you get the government throwing in tax credits for about half of that. It just becomes very, very efficient, especially in the early stages. So when you raise a small seed round or an A round, you want to be as efficient as possible, and you want to get the product market fit and product engineering resources built as efficiently and effectively as possible. 60 to 70% of our employees are still in Canada, but 20% are actually in the US, in New York, in San Francisco, and Miami, and about 10% is international. So I don't think of us at all as a Toronto-based company anymore. I think of us as being an international and a global company.
Talk about your seed investor, your Series A investors, and your current investors, and what made you decide to partner with them, and how did that all come about?
Let's start with the seed round. So the seed round was Lightbank and B Partners. In both of those investors, we had prior relationships with. So they were based on trust and people who believed in us. And then the Series A, so our first big round, was led by Inovia, and I truly think Inovia is one of the best investors globally in the world, and definitely in the top 2 or top 3 in Canada, because they don't think like a Canadian investor, right? They're aggressive, they think big, they've helped many companies raise many large rounds, they've helped take companies public. And then the next round, that was led by Telstra, right? So again, the theme of the relationship here is bringing on investors who you have relationships with, because when you think about, and maybe you can comment on this, but when you think about why an investor is like, putting their ass on the line and taking a risk with an entrepreneur, a lot of it just comes down to trust. Like, do I trust that this person is gonna, do a good job with my money? And do I trust that this person is gonna build a big business? So partnered with Telstra, Yash, obviously we've known each other for quite some time.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think the clincher, and I think this, the clincher for us in picking Telstra is, Yash was like, hey, if we invest, we can also introduce you to SC30, which is Steph Curry's investment fund. And I was like, when he said that, I was kind of like, yeah, sure, cool. Like, I didn't actually think that would happen. Then he introduced me to Bryant Barr, who is Steph Curry's manager. And we went through a bunch of meetings and a bunch of processes. And after about, 4, 5, 6 meetings, he was like, okay, if Telstra's in, we're in. And that was that. So that round was, led by Telstra and with participation from SC30. And Steph has been phenomenal. Like, he's been like, honestly, when they invested, I had certain expectations, and he's blown those expectations out of the water. So not just like, posting on Instagram and doing things like that. Like, he came to our office in Toronto. He did an open Q&A with the entire company. He did an interview on Bloomberg for us. We went on stage at TechCrunch Disrupt together. He actually even wore a Snap Travel hat to the NBA Finals against the Raptors. So, like, awesome person, great, down to earth, and just extremely helpful in many different ways. I love basketball, I love entrepreneurship, so to bring those two things together was awesome. And then most recently, the $85 million round, it was led by, co-led by Inovia again, who again has been supportive throughout the entire life cycle, and Lion Capital out of the UK. And we had again some great participation from A-Crew, from Thayer, from Fullen, and some other great investors. So I would say overall I've had a very positive experience with investors. Maybe because we've continued to go up and to the right. But even in the downtimes, right? Even when we were going through COVID and things were tough, I mean, our investors were there to sort of talk us through it, help us through it, and eventually back us again.
It's a great point that you bring up, which is this key word of trust, right? This is it's all about people. It's all about trust. And one of the things I remember is when you were in San Francisco with Henry and kind of pulled out his phone and showed me the numbers, the stats in terms of GMV and net revenues. And I just said, hey, this is amazing. This is great traction. And so to be totally honest with you, the valuation was expensive, right? And I think it was like a 3x increase from the last round. But what got us so excited was, there was so much trust, not just between you and myself, but with our whole firm, and believe that if we make an investment in the right people and we can kind of see a path to growing into that valuation and more, we'd love to invest.
Both of those points are very interesting. That when I pulled out my phone, I actually sometimes internally tell people that, I actually tell the data team, I need to be able to get numbers at my fingertips, because last time being able to pull numbers at my fingertips literally helped us raise a round, right? So people understand how important, how valuable it is to, even have like a mobile version of these numbers that I can pick up and check whenever I want. And then two, I remember our evaluation discussion, it was pretty casual. It was like, hey, here's where I think we're at. You're like, here's where I think you're at. And I'm like, okay, let's kind of meet somewhere in the middle. And we're like, okay, let's do it, right? Because it's not about, nickel and diming and trying to, price to perfection and get the ultimate valuation. It's about, we believe in you, you believe in us. Can we pick a fair valuation? And do we both think collectively we can build a much bigger business? And obviously, we've been able to do that.
From your perspective, how do other entrepreneurs attract kind of world-class celebrity or athlete talents that really can add value and really authentically care about these companies?
Yeah, I mean, so it's happening more and more, right? Like you see, Drake investing, you see, obviously, Serena Williams investing, Kevin Durant investing, all it's like it's happening more and more. So I think being able to attract them is not so difficult anymore. I mean, usually you need the right insurance, or either a company they've invested into before, or in this case, an investor who's co-invested with them before. But I think the harder part is trying to get them to actually be helpful, right? So a lot of times you'll see a celebrity invest in a company, and in that press release announcement, that's literally the only time you will ever hear of anything to do with that company and that celebrity, right? But if you were to Google, Snapcommerce Steph Curry or Snap Travel Steph Curry, you'll see all types of, contributions that he's made. So I think it's obviously fun and cool and nice to just have a celebrity invest, but more importantly, are they going to help you? And a quick way to check is just Google the last 5 companies they've invested in and the celebrity's name, and see if they've done anything, or if they've just been part of the press release.
Things I've always been super impressed about with you guys is your culture, right? How have you been able to keep that culture, going in this, remote first world, and then as you scale, remote or not, there's just so many people that, need to kind of meet other parts of the organization and get to know other folks. And so how do you maintain that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things that we do. One is we make sure that everyone knows the values of the company. We talk about thinking big, moving fast, same goal, one team, open and transparent, data driven. These are all like core values that we have, and we make sure that in the hiring process, when we bring someone on, in weekly business reviews, we call people out for exhibiting these values, and every town hall we reiterate these values, and it truly is important, right? Like if I'm very honest, when I was younger, when I ran my first company, I didn't really appreciate the importance of these values. Now that this is a big company and a growing company and a maturing company, the values are super important, because you are no longer like sitting around the table with every single employee, right? So I think the value that has been the most impactful to our culture is open and transparent. So we are big believers in being open and transparent. And this may surprise you, but every single employee in the company has access to everything. So our strategy, our financials, our board decks, our annual goals, our 3-year plan, our 5-year plan, everyone has access to that. And I think that creates that trust, and people believe in us, and they believe in the company, and they believe in the vision, and they can see everything. And I think that's what makes people feel that sense of belonging, that sense of ownership.
But I do want to kind of ask you sort of a gritty question. What do you wish you knew about starting a company, dealing with certain types of investors, certain co-founders? What do you wish you knew before you started Snapcommerce?
One, on the business side, is just making sure you have product market fit. When you have product market fit, like basically people want what you built regardless of how shitty it is. Like you could have, a really shitty experience and people are still like, I want it, I need it, I'll pay you for it, right? Two is, choosing your investor base wisely. And I think, fortunately, I think we've had a good job, but I've heard stories of entrepreneurs who haven't picked, the right investor. So, really pick that investor base. Ideally, someone who you've had a relationship with and their character and they're going to sort of be there through the ups and downs. So, find that product market fit and make sure you pick your investors wisely.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for having listened. I think it's been inspirational to having listened to and watching Hussein and his journey and just the learnings that they've had there as well. So once again, if you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends and please also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And more importantly, looking forward to seeing and hearing from you in the next session. Cheers.